Ladies and gentlemen, call this meeting to order. Board of Commissioners, regular board meeting, April 7th, 2014. At this time, I asked Commissioner Franklin if he'll lead us in invocation and pledge allegiance. Please stand.
Let us pray. Our gracious Heavenly Father, we praise you for another day, God. God, and I pray that you touch each and every one in this room, God, that they be blessed. God, and I pray that you touch this Board of Commissioners, God, that the decisions we make, God will be the right decisions. And God, we just lift everything up to you. In Jesus' name we pray. Amen.
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 I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
It's certainly good to see this number out tonight, and this rainy night. Good for you to be present. Appreciate you coming out. We'll start off with approval of the minutes. We have several minutes here that we need to deal with. March the 3rd was a public hearing that we conducted. March 3rd was also a regular board meeting date, but we need to approve those minutes. And March 3rd we had a work session after that. And then we had a work session the 25th of March, which was last week. Commissioners, you had an opportunity to look at these minutes as written. Do I have a motion we accept it?
Make a motion to accept after reading over.
Commissioner Franklin makes a motion that we accept them. Do I have a second?
Following review, I'll second that motion, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, Commissioner Jakes. Seconds the motion. All in favor, signify by your vote sign. Thank you. Start off with items tonight. And if you can't hear me, please just raise your hand. I'll try to speak up a little louder. First of all, I want to open it up if we have anyone that's present tonight to make any comments. If I hear none, I asked our county manager to let me make an announcement about good news. Sometime back, I was talking to Mr. Phillips about what we could do with Turkey Creek Road, about getting it wider so for school buses wouldn't be so close and so forth. And he said we had access to grants through what they call the 3 E's. So he took that and started writing a grant for Turkey Creek Road, and also another grant which would be eligible through the economical development, which is called over to Lankford Road, where Cartex is expanding their business. Naturally, we're going to have to expand the roads in order that it will suffice for the plant. So, in saying that, we contacted our 2 representatives from the state, Adam Powell and John Wilkerson, and we lined up a meeting with Commissioner Golden, who is, by the way, the Chief Commissioner of DOT. And on March the 4th, we met, manager, myself, met with Adam Powell, John Wilkerson, and Commissioner Golden. And presented those requests. Now, this is additional funds that Commissioner Golden has his discrepancy to utilize like he sees fit. He looked at the first request about expanding the road, and right away I didn't think it was going to be good news when he said that we needed to use local highway funds to maybe widen that road. But then, on the other grant, he commented that he felt like that it would be appropriate to submit a $100,000 grant for the Langsford Road expansion, because that was primarily what they like to use it for, to reserve jobs and also companies that expanded jobs. So just last week, we received the good news of the $100,000 grant on the Langsford Road. And so on behalf of the commissioners, I want to thank our county manager for being energetic enough to go out to these funds that people can receive if we take the initiative to go get it. So $100,000 was granted to Franklin County for that particular project. Of course, we have to, up to $100,000, we have to make sure we match 30%, and they will pay 70%. So looking forward to taking care of that project at no cost to citizens of Franklin County. Thanks again, Commissioner, Chairman, for doing that for us. Appreciate that. Saying that comment, we want to move on, and we've got a couple of visitors tonight. Edward and Barry Stanley, would you take the floor at this time? Sit down. What would you like to do?
Well, I'm not here to fight against the leash law, okay? But what I am here about is that there is a dangerous situation in Franklin County. And I went on the internet and I printed out a bunch of stuff here that I wanted to present to you all. There is a dog up here. These people up here on 59, 1,991. We've stopped there to try and purchase some firewood for some people who just didn't have the money. Pulled into the driveway where it says firewood for sale. I'm sure if anybody's gone down 59, they've seen it. It's both ways. I saw a sign that said vicious dog, beware a dog. I'm from Pennsylvania. And any insurance company will tell you, if you put up a sign, beware a dog, up goes your insurance for your house. Because that is admitting that my dog bites. Okay, so knowing this in the back of my mind, I beat the horn several times. My son here walks with a cane. He's got cerebral palsy. My wife says, let me go ask the neighbor. She proceeded over to the neighbor. She got about 10 feet from the truck, and out of nowhere came this pit bull about this high. And my wife weighs, I'm not allowed to say, but it's over 220 pounds, and she's 6 foot tall. He tells you she's 5'12". That dog grabbed her by the leg up here, and then re-grabbed the leg, and literally like a can opener, came right around her leg and tore it open. Now, my wife is from Philadelphia. Her father's an ex-police officer. He had 4 daughters, and they grew up in North Philly. So these kids were brought up, to stand on their own. I can't believe my wife stood there. I can tell you this, and not a matter of fact, if he had gone over there, I would be burying him right now. All right? So I took her immediately to the hospital. The hospital up here says, okay, we're going to let it bleed out, whatever that meant. So after 7.5 hours of sitting there bleeding out, they put a bandage on it and sent us home. In the meantime, Steve Thomas's officer came, took a report, and I told him, you have got to call whoever is in charge of, we're supposed to have, I believe Lewis is the man who came out, confiscated the dog. While we were waiting in the hospital, he kept sending my son pictures of the various dogs. We must have got a half a dozen. Turns out there's at least a dozen and probably 18 dogs at this residence. All right. Well, the dog was biting my wife, trying to tear her leg off. Another one was sitting there at attention, waiting for her to hit the ground. My son here, very smart, very intelligent, hollered, "Stop, halt, release." And that dog let go of her leg and sat there, waiting for another command. And these people have taught this dog to do this. Okay? Now I have some stuff here about Title IV. I don't know if anybody has ever dealt with that. But we have a serious situation here. When I made the officer call this guy Lewis, he called him and he said, "Oh my God." And I said to the officer, "How many?" And he signaled to me like this: "My wife is the fourth person to get bit by this same dog in 60 days. All right? This dog, after the first bite, is supposed to be listed as a dangerous dog. They must have special liability insurance. There should be fines issued. It's all here. If you all would, like I said, you guys are getting a copy of it. Something needs to be done, because this dog is going to kill somebody. I've heard rumors. Nobody wants to come forward. I'm sorry, I'm not that brought up that way. I heard a little boy can't use his arm. Another lady comes into Wilco. She was told she was going to lose her job because she can no longer use her arm because she went to the same place to get firewood. There's another girl that works at Wilco. She's related to me. I just found this out Sunday. The people that are living in this house, my wife said she saw somebody there. They don't want anything to do with the dogs. They're cousins. All right? So they don't want to feed them. They don't want to take care of them. They don't want to do anything. All right? So now we know why nobody came to our rescue. That's 2 seconds. There's one there that talks about how you need a dog officer, how there should be certain penalties. First bite, $150. Second bite, $300. So on and so on. There's also imprisonment that talks about. These are the guidelines by Georgia for us to follow. In other words, these are the only thing. And I said, look, we got a no-leash law. We do flea markets. We have dogs walking around all the time. I have no problem with the no-leash law. What I have a problem with is the fact that these people are selling firewood, have a for sale sign, they're inviting them onto their property, and they are there and eating people. And according to those records and those laws there, after the first bite, that dog's supposed to be quarantined for 40 days. All right? Lewis had it for 10 days and said it doesn't have rabies. He gave it back to the guy. I said, now you told us, that Lewis told us, that my wife is the fourth person in 60 days. All right? These here are some of the pictures of my wife's leg. And there's some on both sides. Now, when we went the week afterwards, when the doctor saw how red her leg was, he said, I'm going to have to cut you open. He performed immediate surgery on her in his doctor's office because he didn't want to take the chance of sending her to Stevens County and remove the blood clot the size of a gold dollar out of her leg. And that's what this incision is right here. Okay? This here is this deep into her leg. Alright? It is over 2 inches that went into her leg. We're in the midst of going to wound care and all this other stuff, to get her leg better. And yes, I went to Cummings, because everybody is scared to death, from here to Athens, from here to Hartwell, from here to South Carolina, of the no-leash law. I said, this isn't a no-leash law problem. This is a problem of a vicious dog. I'm not trying to get Stevie Thomas's job. I don't want anybody's job. But we got a problem. You know, and this needs to be handled. And I'll keep coming to meetings until we get some kind of answer, because this is ridiculous. You know, somebody going to get hurt bad. You know, and in those papers there, it'll tell you that, now my wife is still waking up. She has bad dreams of the dog attacking her. And she just stood firm when that dog had her by the ankle.
And there was another one right
And there was another one just right there, you know. And she's waking up with dreams. So, and they said after we get the wound taken care of, now she's going to have psychiatric treatment. I know this is not a court of law. I understand. But this is all that's going on so far. That we're number 4. Somebody's going to die. Okay? People in the house don't want the dogs. They're the elderly gentleman, I've never met him. Okay? J.C. Beaches is his name. Maybe you all know him. I don't know. He's like 80 years old. They said he was a nice man, great to work with, blah, blah, blah. But now he's senile, and he doesn't know what's going on. So he has cousins living with him, and I guess they're taking care of him. But he has 3 sons that keep bringing dogs to this property. And they don't want nothing to do with the dogs. And so when my wife was being attacked, they were at the door.
There was 2 people at the door.
You know? And the lady that lives beside them, which would be on the Carnesville side, she came running out and said, "Oh my God, are you all right? Are you all right?" She's a relative. She's been fighting with them for years about these dogs. This lady, at 11:30 at night, has to run from her car, and it's closer than me to that desk, climb in the passenger seat, and get into the driver's seat to go to work at midnight. Scared to death of these dogs. She told this to my wife, and she said it loud enough that both me and my son heard it. All right. I went to WLHR. I don't know whether anybody has seen it, but I did bring a copy of it. They did a real nice article explaining it. I even talked to Louis. And because I said to Steve Thomas, why is this dog alive? You know, if we had had a gun that day, you know, the first thing Louis told me was, that dog's perfectly healthy. I said, I don't care. If I had had a gun, it would have been dead. Even the cop that came said, it'll be dead. You know? He said, well, if that was my wife, I'd shot it on the spot. My son has a license to carry a gun. He doesn't always carry it. When we're in the truck now, he's carrying his gun. You know? And I even said to Louis, he said, well, I can't say it on the record, but I agree with you. So, I don't know who is involved. I ain't going to get into the politic thing of it, votes or anything else. I ain't here for that. But I mean to tell you, sir, there is a problem. And it is a safety issue with these dogs. And I don't know how much property these people own, but I had a little pug, and I got like 1.5 acres where I live in Carnesville. And that was plenty of ground for one dog. I don't know how many acres you need for 18 dogs. And the sign is still up. You know, there has been, you know, so when I said to Steve Thomas, why is this still alive? He said, well, if he unpens that dog, we're going to start hitting them with heavy-duty fines. I said, sir, this dog has bitten 4 people that you people have record of. How many is it going to take? Oh, I got to get off the phone. Who told you that? I said, your officer, Officer Merrick. I don't know what else to do. I went to the news meeting, trying to get some attention. I called the mayor. He said, well, it didn't happen in Carnesville, so I ain't got nothing to do with it. That was his office, basically said, you know. I'm not trying to insult anybody. The mayor's here. I'm sorry if I insulted you. But if it's not happening in the city of Carnesville, he says there's nothing we can do. That's what his secretary told him. First thing people want to say is, there's no leash law. This ain't a no leash law problem. I got dogs walking past me every weekend. They ain't on a leash. I just don't understand. Something has to be done. Why this dog is not listed as a dangerous dog, I don't know. The way I read the Title IV, dangerous dog is listed as first bite. And after that, the person is supposed to get special liability insurance. After that, if the dog bites again, it's supposed to be a dangerous, vicious dog attack dog. At that point, his insurance goes even higher. Then, if he doesn't comply with that, and he's supposed to even have a posting that I have a vicious dog, not beware of dog. In other words, this is a vicious dog. All right? That's the kind of sign, and it has to be certified, and it's got to be sent overnight from Louis to him, or delivered by a sheriff, or expediently, whatever. And in that papers, it will tell you if he breaks that, the fine could be up to $10,000. Now, you all decide something else. These are the minimum. All right? Talks about 1 year imprisonment, not more than 5. Second offense, not more than 5, up to 10. What do you get for the 4th bite? So that's what I don't mean to scream at you. I'm just very excited. And something's got to be done. Whether we got to spend some money and get a dog officer, but all Louis does is hold them for 10 days. So in the meantime, you're sitting there wondering, do I got rabies? Do I not have rabies? I don't know. I've only lived here for 11 years. I try and do the best I can, but having Louis put the dog for 10 days is not enough. And it even says in those letters that he should be paying for that time that the dog is held there. He should be paying for the food, the care, the welfare of the dog. And after the 2nd or 3rd bite, he should be penned for 40 days. You got 4 bites in 60 days. What 40 days was this dog in a pen? First 40 or the last 40? I mean, either way, there's a problem, and we're going to have an issue, and somebody's going to get hurt. Worse. Thank God my son remembered those 3 words, because that's the only thing that kept her here. And if it had been a little child, that big, dead. There's no doubt in my mind. Dead. So I hope, I don't mean to gross anybody out with the pictures. Sorry if I said anything that's misconstrued or anything. I tried to stay calm. I didn't come here to holler at y'all. But I need something done. We all need something done. Because any one of us, and I went by there today, and the sign's still up. The sign sits about 6 feet in iron. Firewood for sale. I didn't see the dogs. But Steve assures me that if the dog gets out, we're going to start fighting it. The fine should have started 2 bites ago, as far as I'm concerned. I wouldn't be here tonight if it had started 2 bites ago. Or 3 bites ago. I called, I emailed the Department of Agriculture of Georgia and asked them if they were notified about anything on March 4th, which happened to be my birthday, and that was the day she got hurt. And the Department of Agriculture said there was no notification of a Mary Stanley getting bitten by the county. All right? And I said, all right, fine. In the last 60 days, how many others have you gotten? She says, I've gotten nothing for Franklin County for over 100 days. There is nothing listed. So they told me that they were going to contact the chief of police at Lewis I don't know whether they have yet or not, because that was last Friday when I talked to them. The lady was so upset when she got the email, she called us right away on the phone and said, you all, we feel so sorry, but they didn't report it. So if it ain't reported, it's not listed as a dangerous dog. When they went and asked Mr. James up there, he said, yeah, there's been a couple of bites. That's what Steve told me. But the man's in and out of it. He's 85 plus years old, and he's got Alzheimer's. You know, so I don't know whether doesn't even know what day of the week it is. I have no idea. I never met him. You know, Steve said he was going to contact us. I haven't seen him. Wife hasn't seen him. Nobody's seen him. He told me he's keeping track of the dog. I don't know. I don't know whether they got any fines. You know, I've heard other rumors where the 3 sons are breeding these dogs to fight. I can tell you this, they're teaching them how to eat. They're eating humans. If a wild animal gets used to eating blood, it becomes all of a sudden an animal, a man killer. That dog up there has bit 4 people. So I hope this comes to something. Like I said, those papers from the internet, you all can keep them. I just need Louis back. You know, there's the article. If there's something you want me to do, I'd be glad to do it. It's just, this is what happens. It gets handed back to the guy. And I don't think it's right. I know it isn't right. So,
Have we got a copy of that you can give to our county manager?
if you want to make a copy of it, I don't care. You know. But I mean, even he said off the record, he said, I can't agree, I can't say anything, but you're right. I mean, this dog, they're all muscle, these dogs. My wife is a dog lover. She's, we've still got the bandage. And it's been over a month now. So, I mean, she's going a couple days a week to this wound care therapy. I'll tell you what, that place in Tacoma, they do great wound care, man. So we're either going to have to get them on the docket or do something about the dogs. Because I can't believe I'm not the only one. But everybody, as soon as they hear dog bites, say, oh, no leash law. No, it's not no leash law. It's a vicious, dangerous dog. That's what needs to be addressed. Why this dog isn't listed, I have no idea. So, if you guys got any questions for me, I'd be glad to answer them. The good news is her leg is getting better. That she didn't die, because she helps take care of me and my son. And I don't know what I'd do without her. Just something got to be done.
Well, Mr. Stanley, we want to thank you for coming tonight. We want to thank you for sharing the bad experiences your wife has had.
Maybe our sheriff can get an update or something.
I'm Steve Thomas.
Oh, how you doing? Good to meet you.
Okay. I did have a conversation with this gentleman. He fabricated a little bit of what was said, but I'm not going into that. I did tell him I'll check into it. I was aware that there was 2 other bites at the residence, not by the same dog. I was not aware of that. He told me that. I went back. Louie and I monitored this dog. It's been on a chain and in the fence since this happened. Because when I went back up there and made sure that it was in a chain, on the chain and the fence, that's been taken care of because the owner of the dog did come up there. And I told him, I said, you're responsible for whatever your dog has done. And he said, I understand that. His father does have a touch of Alzheimer's. Super good guy.
I'm not trying to attack you, I
I'm
understand.
I was telling you what I did,
Right.
and I told him I would check into it. That's what I did. I've got pictures as of latest today where the dog is still on the chain and in the fence. So, I advised him, too, that he could sue civilly, reference to the dog because we did not have a leash law. And I am aware of what the dangerous dog law is, but this dog had not been deemed as a dangerous dog. We don't send our stuff into the state. Louis sends his stuff together. I don't know if he sends it every 6 months when he does it, but we've discussed that too. So the dog as of today is still in that same pen on the chain.
Will it be listed as a dangerous dog now, or?
If we can show where this dog has bitten another person other than his wife, I know we can do that. But like I said, that's what Lou's working on now.
Right.
Thank you, Sheriff. Any other comments, Commissioner?
Thank you, General.
Thank you again, Mr. Stanley, for coming. And we would ask our county manager to give us some information, talking to the health department, and sheriff, if you feel like you need to share with us, we appreciate that.
Glad to.
Next on our agenda is Ferris Johnson, the Purple Heart County proclamation. Mr. Johnson?
Good evening, gentlemen.
Good evening.
My name is Ferris Johnson. I'm the chapter president of the Military Order of the Purple Heart for Northeast Georgia region. Our chapter is located in Athens, Georgia. We have 10 chapters in the state of Georgia that are Purple Heart chapters. These chapters do service work for veterans, do community work in the communities, assist any families, any veterans who need any help doing anything. If they need help getting to their doctor's appointments, if they need help for anything at all, hopefully we're there to help with that situation. Right now in the state of Georgia, the push is to, number one, get as many cities, counties, radio stations, universities, businesses to become Purple Heart cities, universities, etc., and so on. And saying that, all is required is that the city, county, university, or whoever, or business, make a proclamation stating that, for instance, we'll use Franklin County right now. Right now, there are only 2 in the state of Georgia. Winkworth down in Savannah was the first. Morgan County was the second. And if approved by Franklin County will be the 3rd county in the state of Georgia as a Purple Heart County. It won't cost the counties any monies. On the day that proclamation is read and signed, our state commander, Military Order of Purple Heart, members from Chapter 531 Athens, surrounding members of the other 9 chapters in the state will come. We will do the proclamation, take pictures, answer any questions, anything that you want to know about Purple Heart. As you know, the Military Order of Purple Heart was started by George Washington. Okay? It's the only honor for enlisted personnel in these United States of America. And it dates back to 1782, something like that. I kind of encourage you to really seriously think about this. As I said, it won't cost the counties any money. It would be good for the county. And it would let the veteran, local veterans know that you as a county support veteran affairs. If you have any questions, I believe John and I talked, and the information that you need to make that decision you should have. And if you need any more input from me, please, sir, all you got to do, my number, home number is 706-245-5600. 7132. My home number, my cell number, 706-498-6730. And I will come running, you know. I will be there to help with anything that you need to make this happen. And you really should make it happen, because it's just paying homage to those people. And a lot of people who get this medal doesn't know that they have the medal. A lot of them, like World War I, World War II vets, and I am a Vietnam veteran myself. I served in Vietnam 67 to 68. I was wounded in March the 12th, 1968 in Khe Sanh. That was during the Tet Offensive of 68. Okay? 2 years out of school from Franklin County. Born and raised Franklin County. I graduated school from Franklin County Higher and Trade, and that was when there was no, he was segregated. All black kids went to the black school. 1968. In my class, it was a class of 28. Unheard of, yes. A lot of you didn't know that. But that's the way it was back then. It's not like that now. But I'm proud to be a Franklin Countyan, and I'm proud to serve in these United States Armed Forces. So, gentlemen, I thank you. I salute you.
One thing that we do need from you, Mr. Johnson, is a clear copy of the resolution.
I will get it to you.
Okay.
I will definitely make sure that you get it. And I'm sorry I didn't bring it with me because I thought you saw it.
We received the facts, but unfortunately you could not make out the facts.
Okay.
So if
And,
we can
and
get
that
a
was
copy
because
of that.
the original paper that they gave me, and I had to go online and try, and I found the original,
Okay.
and I'll get that to you.
Thank you.
But yes, as a matter of fact, you'll have it in the morning. I'll bring
Okay.
it directly to you.
Very good. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Johnson. Appreciate that presentation. So we'll get the information on what you asked him. The next item on our agenda is, in a work session last week, we talked about land use and regulations, planning and zoning, and our Planning and Zoning Commission has sort of indicated that it's time to look into our planning and zoning again. Commissioner Harper, you want to come in on that?
Yes, thank you, Mr. Chair. As you stated that we had talked about reviewing and updating our planning and zoning ordinances. And I think it would be appropriate at this time to actually take a vote requesting that our planning commission review and update our ordinances. I've been directed by our manager that would be very appropriate, and so they can get to work on this. So at this time, I'd like to make a motion that we direct the planning and commission to look at our ordinances and revise our ordinances with, close, not oversight, but working with our county manager. I'd like to make that motion.
Thank you, Commissioner Harper. We have a motion that we officially ask the planning and zoning to look into the ordinance. Do I have a second?
Second, Mr. Chairman. And it's also noteworthy to mention that any changes or revisions will also require public hearings and comment from the public to review any proposed changes.
Correct.
Very good. So we have a second from Commissioner Jacobs. Any discussion? All in favor signify by your voting sign, please. 5 in favor. Moving along to additional jail expansion discussion. For some time now, we've been discussing how we're going to fund the addition to the present jail and how we're going to take care of the needs of Franklin County, because right now our procedure is that we're farming out or shipping out, so to speak, some prisoners to surrounding counties. So we didn't want to pass up this another opportunity to talk a little bit about the expansion of our jail, and we do have that on our list for the next work session also. But let me just open it up for discussion and start off with Commissioner Jacobs.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. First and foremost, I want to thank Commissioner Strickland and the other members of the Jail Expansion Subcommittee. I have looked at the options that were presented, and there's a tremendous amount of time, effort, and work that did go into each of these. I think, and Mr. Strickland, you can correct me if I'm wrong, I think what appeared to be the most viable probably was the $3 million bond offering, the 15-year amortization with the interest only for 4 years. And I have had a chance, following our last meeting, to go back and review this proposal, understanding it is only a proposal, and just had, just to be totally honest with you, concerns regarding this, and want to, relay these to my colleagues on the board, sheriff and others, but not only sit here and discuss my concerns with this, but also look at some possible alternatives for the funding. But first and foremost, basically with the 15-year amortization on the bonding, and this being for the $3 million with par pricing, interest only for 4 years, we're looking at initially just the bond issuance cost of $110,500, that being basically $65,000 attorney fees, the underwriter discount $30,000, other associated fees totaling $110,500 initially. Then we're looking at going out through the amortization schedule. On average, we're looking at an interest and principal payment following the 4th year, which would be projected into 2019 being $325,000 per year. That is going to translate into an additional $27,000 per month for payment on the debt service for retirement of the bond. And then we're looking at an approximate $17,000 per month cost for the operational overhead. And I do want to mention here that cost basically will be minimized because of the savings that we will garner from not paying to house detainees out. But when I sit down and look at this, and I know, Commissioner Strickland said potentially that the debt service could be retired with a SPLOST. My concern is that's predicated on the fact that there is a SPLOST, and number two, it's predicated on the fact that the SPLOST would pass. I have really sat down and evaluated and analyzed the impact that this will have on our budgets, both current and long-term, and I'm very, very concerned that this will just adversely impact our ability to fund what we consider already essential core services. I do not feel that this plan is financially viable nor economically feasible. So I don't want to sit here and just end with this. I would like to at least propose a viable option while we're in this discussion. Not to mention all of us have a concern about keeping our tax dollars in the county. If this bond were to go to fruition, we're talking about a total of $1,035,613 being paid out over the life of the bond to attorneys and to interest and stockholders elsewhere, whether they're throughout the state or throughout the nation. So I do have a concern with that much of our tax dollars being distributed elsewhere to investors. The option that I would like to propose, I've done what I consider a fairly detailed review of our current budget, of all of our current finances, and one thing that I had found is we have a fund balance that about 2.5 years ago, I asked Billy Morris, our county manager at that time, to go through and provide us a complete worksheet on all of our finances. Everything we had as far as all of our loans, everything we had cash on hand, etc. And what we did, there were several of our loans that we could refinance and get a much lower interest rate due to the economy. We did that. We also looked and evaluated the amount of money that we have in our general fund balance over a 3-year cycle. And we took the money that was below what we anticipated worst case scenario, our fund balance being, and which was $1,891,681, and have transitioned that money into a CD. Very low interest, but nonetheless, our money was not sitting there, not earning anything. It went from basically earning less than 0.1%, if I'm not mistaken, to somewhere around 0.75%. So we do have that money that is currently available. And again, I have analyzed and I have all the documentation here. Going back, I've gone through 7 audits looking at revenues and expenditures. Our operational costs have not gone below this dollar figure. So what I would propose moving forward with this vinyl gel expansion is this. It was mentioned that this project be coupled with a natural gas expansion, and while it makes perfect sense because you would put both projects under one bond, thereby the $110,500 bond issuance, you're not paying that twice if you chose to bond both projects. But I think to make this work, my proposal to the board will be that we separate these two. These projects are in different states of readiness, with the jail expansion being much more ready than the natural gas expansion. Okay. In doing so, before I make that recommendation to this board, Commissioner Harper also is seated on the natural gas subcommittee with myself. I contacted him because I wanted both of us to be on board with my proposal. And Commissioner Harper, at this time or at some point in time, I would just like to gather your concurrence that if this option is something to be considered by the board, that we would basically split the two for the very reason we're looking at potentially a year or more before a natural gas expansion could even be feasible as far as being put out to bids. And I feel like that the jail expansion is basically ready. Would you want to comment now or when I get?
With the natural gas, as Commissioner Jakes stated, we're not even close to ready. You've got to get intergovernmental agreements. You've got to get how much percentage, who gets what. I mean, we're looking at a long, long process, and it's just, in my opinion, not feasible to have the natural gas in with the jail funding. But as Commissioner Jakes has set forth this proposal, this will work. I think it's a very thought out plan. It's something that's why when we went into this, sometimes we get a narrow view of what we have to do. And I think that there was a narrow view made of, well, we're going to have to bond. And we kind of jumped on that bandwagon, and that is not, in my opinion, necessarily what we need or what we must do to get this project going. Go on and finish your...
Can I ask you a question?
Yeah, if you'll let me finish this, absolutely.
Okay, sure, okay.
Okay, then basically just going through what I would recommend as part of this proposal is the current plan is a fantastic plan as far as safety, as far as efficiency, as far as the operational efficiency, having a minimal number of people being able to supervise and monitor a number of detainees. But at this juncture, since my proposal will be to utilize a portion of our existing funds, I would like to keep the cost to a minimum. So while using the plan, I would recommend that we basically just finish 2 pods and wait on the additional 2 pods until additional revenues become available, and as the construction were to progress. The key component here is the utilization of our general revenue fund reserves. This is, as I've stated, based on my 7-year evaluation, we have never dipped this far into our cash reserves, so I feel very comfortable in utilizing this money to circumvent the $1 million+ that would cost over the duration of the bond with the issuance fee, etc. And naturally, you do not want, as a county or city, governmental agency or business, to keep and maintain a very low reserve. So what I would propose is that since us as citizens are basically borrowing money from our reserve fund, that we, in the next annual budget, create a line item in that budget and start directing a certain amount of money back in the general fund in order to raise our fund balance. And I know that there is always the potential or possibility that there is an emergency, that we might go below this balance for the first time in 7 years. If it does, so be it. I would say that we would probably have to go to the bank and probably borrow money. I don't foresee that happening, but looking at contingencies, none of us has the crystal ball, but looking at this framework, looking at the overall cost of the bonding option and the predication of a SPLOST being put on the ballot, passage of the SPLOST, etc., I see this saving the taxpaying citizens, if the bonding goes to fruition, over $1,035,000. It puts this totally back in our control because we're able to use the current jail fund that we have of $815,000. We would let it out to bids. We would pay the draws until we had exhausted that. Then we would go into our fund balance, and I do not foresee us having to utilize all of our fund balance. And if the project comes in extremely what we consider overpriced, we have the option of, with no financial constraint, to go back and rebid the project or look at some modifications that will fit within our budget constraints. I think that any variation that I've looked at of bonding or other conventional type loans will constrain this board and future boards from being able to handle other priorities, such as being able to give something back to the taxpaying citizen in the form of a tax decrease. It will tie our hands from being able to reward county employees who have gone without while we have experienced severe, I guess what you would say, economic distress over the last couple of years. And it would basically negate the gains that this board has achieved through the first of the year up until this point. And again, I say I just do not feel that, any of the options that were presented are financially viable or economically feasible, and would just put this out to the board, the citizens, the sheriff. I do not see how we could go wrong with this option, with what we can save, with what we give back to our citizens. When you let a project and you're doing it with a bond, you have to issue the bond prior to the project being let, because you've got to have the monies on hand. And what happens if the price of the jail construction were to come in extremely high, we would not have the flexibility to go back on that bond, because it would already be issued and we would already begin funding the debt service. And I would, Commissioner Strickland, be glad to answer any questions that you might have, or my other colleagues.
Let me interject, Commissioner Strickland, before you start. Appreciate what you are doing, Commissioner Jakes. That's exactly what we all trying to do, is take our time and analyze what route to go. And I certainly appreciate you taking that time to do that. That's why we set it back a month, I know, which was probably disappointing to some, that we wait and talk about it again at our work session coming up March the 25th on that Tuesday. But you bring out some good points. Commissioner Strickland, you got some points you want to bring out.
Well, I was just going, I think that sounds like a great idea, but it's, with that, are we using, because we only have a couple of months of reserve anyway, that we have, is that not correct?
Okay, this is fund balance that hasn't been touched over the years. And I'm the one that made the recommendation several years ago, seeing this fund balance that hadn't been used, and it was drawing virtually no interest. And here we put it into a CD as more of a reserve fund. And I will never say that it is ideal to take your reserves out. That is why I recommended that we immediately turn around and start putting back money into our reserve fund. But our accountant, Joe Kitchens, approves of this idea and is advised that it will not put us in any type of loss of our current bonding or our current financial status. And this money that I'm seeing here, the $1.8 million, as stated, looking historically, and I've got all the documents here, we have not gone below that point. And while we're not anticipating using all of this, I do not see another alternative that saves us over $1 million, and we're going to immediately in next year's budget cycle start replenishing the general fund and get it back up to the level that we feel as a board and as our auditor recommends that is sufficient for a county government. If I answered your question.
Well, it would be yes or no as far as, is that money coming from our reserve?
It's coming from the general fund, and it is coming from an amount that, based on my review of this year's budget and previous budgets, that we have not and will not touch.
Thank you, Commissioners.
Well, you know, the great thing
is
about.
yes or no, I mean, just all I want is because what we were trying to do is build our reserve up, because it's like I recommend my clients to have at least 3 months of their income set back in case you have rainy days, because there's been, I think, times years ago back when this county was trying to find how to make payroll, if I'm not mistaken.
And I have been 100% concurrence in trying to build up the fund balance, but I would rather utilize Franklin County tax dollars to circumvent paying out over $1 million of bond issuance fees and interest to people all over the country, $95,000 in attorney fees just in closing, borrowing the money for ourselves for construction, and then replenishing our fund balance, than to go through this process and have a larger fund balance.
Well, I've looked at the numbers, and the numbers add up. This is a great plan. I've been talking with Commissioner Jakes about this plan, and there's 3 reasons. I mean, the money that is going to be saved is substantial. If we get into problems, we can set up a line of credit, and if we have something catastrophic, we have something to fall back on as far as getting a loan. It certainly won't be $4 million, and that's what was first issued, talked about as far as bonding. The second thing is our auditors said it would be perfectly fine to do this, and we can certainly save a tremendous amount. I think my figures came up to over 1.3, almost $1.4 million in interest and
just for clarification, is if the bond were to go to duration, it's $1,035,613. Now I do
I've got here $1,233,089. Then you add in the $110,000.
I'm using this schedule that David said was the most viable option, which actually reduced.
Okay.
And I do want to clarify that the monies that is in the CD, we will be losing that small amount of interest for a short period of time until we get it replenish that. But I did want to clarify the numbers of
Yes,
what I
okay, I
was
was looking at. the
basing it
$1
on.
million
I
bond.
apologize if I,
No, that's-
and the fact that realistically, you know, also to Commissioner Strickland's point, that let's just say that SPOS did pass, you got 2 years before SPOS is on the ballot, then you would have potentially a 6-year SPOS. So you would have to collect on the SPOS 6 years plus the 2 years, so you would really be paying for 10 years, which would be the callable amount on this bond, and by retirement of SPOS, you would save the last 5 years of debt service. But I still think this is a much more viable option.
Well, could we at the same time, Jeff, take it where we work, say, go this route, and then look, see if we could pass the SPOS to help pay for that, to refund our,
That is
that
definitely an alternative, but I don't want to predicate anything on the passage of a SPOS. I mean, with this proposal, what it would do to our budget would basically hamstring us from doing, there would be major cuts just to accommodate this project. And I see this as a way of circumventing that and allowing our county manager and others to be able to do some things for county employees. Sheriff Thomas in here, at our last meeting, he lost 4 employees in the matter of 2 weeks, 5.
We just have one
Okay,
submitted.
we've lost 5 employees, and just a matter of a couple of weeks, we've got to look at the retention of our quality employees, period.
And if you combine those, if I may, with the operational cost of the jail expansion, plus the indebtedness that we're talking, the interest, closing costs, all those factors combined, in my opinion, would definitely put a strain on Franklin County.
I think it's much more risky getting a $3 million bond and paying interest on it for 4 years, hoping SPOS will pass. You're talking about risk factors. I'd much rather use the money we have available, and if something catastrophic happens, we can come back and establish a line of credit and go that route. And we still are not going to.
And John, to
to
your
go up to
point,
$3 million.
the numbers I came up with, it would be $44,000 per month with the operational cost increase, plus the debt service minus what is being paid to house out. So that, and that's per month. And when I look at that, I am absolutely telling you that is a
I don't see how we
disaster
can get it in our budget.
for the budget.
I do not see how we can
It's
get it in our
not
budget.
viable, and I feel like this plan at least gives us a framework of something that we can all work together with, that'll borrow money from ourselves and save us a significant amount of money and put us in a situation where we can work and address the priorities that the board and, you know, constitutional officers, et cetera, deem appropriate.
Thank you, Commissioner. Any
Yeah,
other statements?
yeah, I'll just say thank you for putting that together. That's, because the other was just, like I say, when it come back that there was $2.7 million for a jail, we was looking at 1.4.
Absolutely right. That
Yeah.
basically, without some type of creative
Because
funding
all I
like
was
that,
looking
there's
at
no
was taking
way.
that 800,000
Yep.
and having to look at maybe 400,000 to 500,000,
Right.
which
Was manageable.
manageable.
I like guiding. I think I'm along with the sheriff and voting citizens that I don't like spending $7,000 to $14,000 per month for housing out somebody. You know, and so we got to do something. And I thank Commissioner Jakes for checking into all of this and coming up with it. I don't like the idea of spending big monies for attorneys and, you know. To me, you can take that money and pay a little interest at a local bank or something versus all of that. And so, you know, I'm ready to go forward with it and, you know, I'm satisfied.
Thank you, Commissioner Franklin. I appreciate it, Commissioner Jay, for you bring that, Commissioner Harper. Naturally, we are set to deal with this issue again at the work session on the 25th of March. We have the options now of critiquing what has been looked into and making sure that we're correct on the direction we're going. Let me just briefly ask Captain Smith if you've got a statement that you'd like to make about what's said tonight.
Mr. Chairman, I appreciate what the board's doing. And again, I'm not a financial guy. I run jails, the operation and how they operate, and to keep us out of legal matters. And I think by showing this effort, we're addressing two areas. One of those being, one of the things you look at is deliberate indifference. We can no longer say that the board is not deliberately indifferent because they're moving forward and trying to make this thing work. Or we get into the vicarious liability, something we knew or something we should have known and we failed to act upon. And I think by the board working the way they are together along with the sheriff, I believe that we can arrive at something that's going to work for the county. It's just a matter of working together, everybody addressing their issues and concerns, and finding the best avenue to move forward together. So I commend the board for your action.
Thank you, Captain, appreciate that.
I'll say, one of the things, basically with bringing that natural gas in, it was just a thought to try to, it was a starting place, is what it was. That's why the mayor wasn't that aware of it, because we were just starting this process. And what we're trying to do is make sure that the taxpayers of Franklin County, because it's bad when they have to pay for a criminal's house, it's not your neighbor's. You know, there's something wrong with this system.
Joe Arpaio's got it right.
You know, by being cautious, taking that time to analyze all options, certainly going to be very beneficial to the citizens in Franklin County in the long run. I heard word out of Royston today that they have come up with some great news on gas expansion. I'm waiting for that report to come to manager to see what that means. If it's good news to spend natural gas, that's what we're looking for. So we'll wait and see what Royston brings out of that meeting that they have coming down the pipeline shortly. However, you know, we're not ruling out that we need to move. We need to take care of business in Franklin County. We need to look after our citizens, our taxpayers. We need to make sure that we don't keep sending our funds to joining counties to take care of the situations in our county. So I would encourage all commissioners to keep digging like you guys have already done. Keep digging. On the 25th, with the subcommittee working with a manager, come back with a critique, idea, and information on how we're going to pull this off. I know, Mr. Stanley, you keep raising your hand. So
I just have one question. Do we need two pods? Because it seems like that's, if it's money that you're worried about, why don't you build one pod now and then wait till it builds back up and then see about the second pod?
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Stanley. I appreciate that comment. Commissioners, y'all got anything else about this subject?
I have a thought. Sometimes that's scary. I know when I built my house, and I know when we built our church, we did not hire a contractor to do a turnkey job. We've got some talented people at our disposal as far as our county employees. When you get blueprints, they're pretty detailed in what has to be done. And just something I want to throw out to think about, because if we could do the contracting ourselves and subcontract out this jail, we could probably save about 35% of it. And that's just something I want us to at least talk about, because you're talking about a large chunk of money when if we have somebody that's over the subcontractors, and like I said, the blueprints are so detailed and so specific in what has to be done, I think that's a viable option also.
Thank you, Commissioner Harper. In the next days, I'm sure
And
we're
to
going to
answer
come up with something more.
Mr. Stanley's question, it's kind of like you want to build the entire shell while you're doing it, rather than building some and then going on and building an entire, and then, but we planning on finishing, half of it now.
Commissioner,
I was gonna say, do you know when we might can sit down with Jeff and all and we get some things, maybe even before the work session?
I think that's a
Me,
great idea.
yeah, you talking about collectively or me and you?
Well, there's two commissioners.
two of us.
That's what I was gonna say, we need
Just
to
two
call
of
us,
us.
David, let's me and you just work out the logistics of that, yes.
Okay, sounds good.
Please
Thank
do
you.
that and include a manager. I think it's been a good discussion about how we're going to approach expansion of our jail. And I appreciate all the time and effort that's being put into this. Like I stated before, we need to be correct, accurate, and we need to make sure that we move forward in a cautious way, but an effective way to get the mission accomplished. I do not have anything else on my agenda tonight. Let me ask the manager, do you have anything else that you'd like to mention, sir?
No, sir, I don't think so at this time.
Well, I'll entertain a motion to adjourn.
So, Mr. Chairman.
I got a couple of kind of both directions.